today the Doc is joining the program on a Tuesday. He made some time for the fellas. He's a busy man now.
He's a good guy.
To get the Doc, he's a busy man. He's working hard. He's doing great work. As always, brought to you guys, this interview by BetUS. Please welcome to the show the publisher of Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, the host of the Lone Wolves podcast, Detroit Sports Podcast, the legend, Mr. John Maakaron. John, get in here, John. How you doing?
Yeah, don't give Gentry too much shit. He was trying to figure out what the fuck's been wrong with Derek Lalone. He's trying to find a new replacement for the Red Wings. My goodness, when you start getting compared to some of the coaches in the NHL getting fired, when you get compared to Monty Williams in town, things are bad for the Red Wings. Look, is there a way, Gentry? Is there a way for the Red Wings to play the Islanders just every game? Because that's the only way they can get some points.
I mean, Doc, they only play them for, the third period. The first two periods, they go ghost, and they have to make a comeback attempt. But, yeah, no, I saw the comparisons to Monty Williams. When you're getting compared to that guy, Doc, you know it's never a good situation. So hopefully Derek can turn it around. I mean, we strung a couple good performances together. I mean, I would say a couple good periods together, I guess. But yeah, the Red Wings, they need some of the Doc's luck. Doc, you might have to tap in the press box. Ask them the tough questions, get them going.
Hey, Doc, real quick, I think you're hooked up to the compuder mic, not your actual mic. I think
you sound a little different tonight, Doc. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah,
there was a rumor. There was a rumor that before the Doc hopped on today, I got some messages from some big media companies saying that it might have been TMZ. They spotted Doc at a golf simulator working on his golf swing today instead of working. I don't know what was going on, Doc.
Yeah, I also
is that true, Doc?
Man, do I sound any better?
You sound great now.
You sound great.
Oh, see, I just have to push the right buttons. I was into the beer. I was celebrating because I'm kind of like you guys. On Wednesday, the Lions have an off day before the Thursday game, so I'm going to be chilling at home, relaxing, covering a 10-1 football team. So many buttons to push, so many beers to drink. But, man, what an interesting time it is around the Detroit Lions and how good things are. I know it's a short week, but, man, 10-1, cheers to that. Cheers to great times covering sports in Detroit and a football team that now for 2 weeks in a row, universally considered by all the media as the number one NFL team. And now you're seeing the talk about, you're hearing pundits talk about this football team being compared to the 2007 Patriots. I nearly fell out of my chair. I'm like, my goodness, this football team, despite all the injuries, is winning football games. Now they're being talked about as not only just a good football team in 2024, they're starting to be compared to all the great teams in the history of the NFL. And this is a fun time. So I grabbed two. So we'll see over the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour if I can drink both. But cheers to that. It's a fun time to be covering the Lions. No doubt about it. And cheers to everybody in the chat.
I interrupted the Doc to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, and that is BetUS. You can head over there right now and get in on this line, which I love. DeAndre Swift over under rushing yards, 47.5. Of course, I'm putting 50 on the under. You kidding me? He's not rushing for more than 47.5 yards. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that in, place it as a single, and I'm ready to go. You guys can do the exact same thing on BetUS. And remember, they're offering 150% on your first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposit, up to $2,000, all with code YouTube150. Head over there now. Check out the lines. Let's get back to the video. There you go. And by the way, Colin Cowherd said that, Boone. But apparently he doesn't hate it. He hates on the Lions, but he said they're comparable.
Oh, sorry.
Let me ask you.
That was a real cough. Just
you're the,
weird timing.
You're the perfect guy to ask about this. James Houston released today. I guess I'm not surprised it happened, Doc. I mentioned earlier. I'm a little surprised at the timing. But when I really think about what could be on the horizon, which is probably another move, it's not as surprising. I'll ask you your reaction to James Houston, kind of the storyline there, and also what could be on the horizon, Doc? Brad doesn't do this unless there's another move coming. What do you think it's all about?
Well, just at a rudimentary level here, all I can say from a factual basis is when James Houston had an opportunity to showcase his talents, he shit his pants. And that's just unfortunate for a football player that tried to stay on the Lions. And when you shit your pants, the football team probably is not – the Detroit Lions are not going to be the place that's going to fit for you. And look, in all honesty, just the injury probably is just a big factor in why he just didn't get back to the level that he was as a rookie. If he didn't get injured, I probably have no doubts that he would be a contributor and have a little bit more say and do more things on this defense, because he would have had an opportunity. Aiden Hutchinson goes down, but that injury was pretty devastating, and it took him, a bit of time to recover. And when he came back, it just they tried everything, and they're patient. You could see just how much they tried to, teach him the Sam linebacker spot. It didn't work out. They gave him the opportunity just to be a pass rusher. And look, the Lions want the full allotment of your skills. And when he went out there, it's just it didn't happen. And the Lions, and Dan Campbell said it today when he was asked about it, it just didn't work out here. Maybe a fresh start for James Houston might provide him an opportunity to shine. But here in Detroit, shit his pants.
Doc, I just have a
real quick. He didn't answer the second part, Doc.
That was what I was going to follow up with.
Okay. Go ahead,
Doc. Before you do ask that, I just want to caveat that with, is there someone on the IR that could be coming? Because that was not mentioned today when Dan brought it up. Are they bringing in Daniel Jones? I don't think anyone's thought about the IR. Is there someone coming off IR potentially for that roster spot? I'll leave it at that. Sorry. I just want to
no, that's exactly right. That's what people are speculating. Could somebody come off of the IR and potentially be a contributor? Look, I look at it from this perspective. Roster moves at this time are tough because Dan Campbell was asked, today, have you thought about Daniel Jones? And he said, we haven't had that conversation yet. So to me, it kind of lends to the idea that Daniel Jones probably would entertain coming here, but he wants to go to a spot where he could potentially play and showcase, put some tape out there. And Detroit is just going to be, helping Jared Goff prepare. So to me, I feel like the 49ers might be the best spot. Maybe the Vikings are an opportunity for him. So I don't see, and this week, it just kind of seems like from how I've read things in the past, this week is just a grinded out week for the coaches to put together a game plan, help the team grow and learn, and at the same time, deal with a myriad of injuries. So roster decisions, in terms of Dan Campbell having meetings about Daniel Jones, I think he'd be intrigued by it. But I think that today I kind of asked a roundabout way to Dan Campbell. I said, hey, what do you think about the development of Hendon Hooker? And he said, hey, I see progress continuously with this player. And if the time comes, he's got to go out there. I don't care if he's ready or not. He's going out there. So to me, it does not I feel like if you brought in Daniel Jones, while it would give me more comfort, I feel like Hendon Hooker's the backup. Clear as day. It basically, Dan Campbell said it. Dan Campbell, doesn't really beat around the bush. And when I asked him, I said, hey, are you happy with his development based on the fact that he's a developmental quarterback? And Dan Campbell said, yeah, he's growing. And my expectation is that he can run this offense. And the one thing that I really respect about Dan Campbell is that he said, basically, we would just change our offense to suit Hendon Hooker. We'd call some things that we think he would do well. And that gives me a little bit more confidence that if something does happen to Jared Goff, maybe you call it more run plays, short passes, out of, moving the pocket a little bit. So to me, I just think that while the Daniel Jones story, it was intriguing when it was reported by Jordan Schultz that the Lions have some interest, I just would be surprised. I would be a little bit surprised because then you're kind of opening up the Pandora's box of people like me and you guys saying, wait a minute, if you bring in Daniel Jones, what does that mean for Hendon Hooker? He's not doing what he's got to be doing to develop over the year and a half. So to me, I just don't think that I don't think the Daniel Jones situation is going to happen.
Hey, keep an eye out, Doc, in the next 24 hours.
Yep.
Daniel Jones may be a Detroit Lion.
Maybe.
I do want to ask. I think it might happen. I think there's a
good news about Hendon Hooker, though. I like that.
50% chance that he is a Detroit Lion in the next 24 hours. But Doc, I also want to ask you defensively. I feel like this has been the biggest story, or one of the biggest stories of the Detroit Lions over the last few weeks, is the AG situation and this defense. 3 straight weeks going shutouts in the second half, 10 straight quarters without giving up a touchdown. What are your thoughts on this defense and how AG has been kind of controlling this defense and scheming them up, especially with all of these injuries? It's been honestly kind of impressive, and we've talked about that. Right now, he could potentially be the best DC in the NFL. What are your thoughts on AG's job that he's done over the last 4 or 5 weeks?
Right. I had to fill out the apology form because I was somebody that said, well, look, I can say this. With Aaron Glenn, he also has gotten better as a defensive coordinator. Clearly, some of the things that didn't work, have been resolved. I think he really wanted to play a lot more press man, wanted to be able to have a group of talent that he believed in and would push hard and coach and develop. And I feel like that now with this roster, with Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, who's feisty and can get in the mix, really has allowed for Aaron Glenn to shine. And here's what's crazy is that if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that you're going to lose Aiden Hutchinson, Derek Barnes, Alex Anzalone, and you're thinking that this defense is going to get better, I would have laughed. I would have said, okay, yeah, that's not going to happen. The defense is going to fall off the face of the earth. Statistically, they're playing at the level outside of pressures and sacks. They're playing at the level that's maybe even a little bit better without Aiden Hutchinson. And it kind of makes sense too, because everybody's kind of got to focus just a little bit more. You got to remember Aiden Hutchinson's all world, can pressure the quarterback, get sacks, stop the run. He's an all world player, defensive player of the year candidate. Well, when he goes down, everybody else has got to step up. And I think that when you see the depth, credit to Brad Holmes for putting together a defensive roster that can withstand 4 or 5 injuries. I think they're at the brink, though. 1 or 2 more, and I think you're going to start to see the play dip. But part of the reason is you have 2 of the best safeties in the National Football League. Brian Branch is somebody that you don't want to mess with. He's a thumper, reminds everybody of Ed Reed and just the nasty nature that he's got. And Kirby Joseph is a ball hawk. Combine that with the second-year growth of Jack Campbell, who, remember, is a first-round pick that everybody thought would really develop in this scheme. And you got Malcolm Rodriguez, who understood the system, comes in and is also versatile and making plays. And I just think that as well. Credit to DJ Reader and Ali McNeil for picking up the slack along that defensive line. It's just been a situation in which you can kind of look at AG and say, man, you kind of hope that he could stay a little bit longer because this defense next year could take another step forward where you could add more talent, get Aiden Hutchinson back, add more weapons, and you could start to see the system really flourish because you'll get a second year of Ennis Rakestraw and Terrion Arnold, who will do so much more in this system. But credit to AG. I mean, can sit back after, 10 quarters of not giving up a touchdown. It's a true bend, don't break. They lock it down in the red zone, and Aaron Glenn is showcasing that his growth combined with great depth and game planning like a maniac, that the fact of the matter is, and I asked him too, and in such a roundabout way, kind of how are you developing and growing, and how are you better than you were when you first got here in 2021? And he's done the work. He's talked to college coaches. He's put in the time and effort to learn about, okay, how are college offensive minds thinking? And then he challenged himself to try and match wits. And then, like Dan Campbell said, he has these game management meetings with him and all the assistant coaches, and they go over situations and they talk ball. So they're kind of always in the mix of improving. And, it's kind of interesting when he does go up there and talk. He kind of has this swagger about himself when he talks to the media, looks around the room, gives everybody eye contact, just answers the question, and is just one of those coordinators that's just no nonsense. And, Amik Robertson, after the Lions win, told Sports Illustrated, and a lot of players told me that too a couple years ago. Kirby Joseph had told me that in a story I wrote a couple years ago. AG cares about his players. He demands excellence, and they respect the fact that he's the same guy. No nonsense, no bullshit. Go handle your business. Go smack people around, and try to meet your expectations. And if you play for Aaron Glenn, you're going to play a physical brand of football that's going to be successful. And to see it's just crazy to think that this defense can get better and not give up a touchdown in 10 quarters of NFL action is just something to be applauded. And we should all enjoy it, because this may be the last 7 games you see. This may be the last stretch you see with these coordinators around.
And Doc, you brought up the injury updates. Obviously, David Montgomery, Carlton Davis, those guys went out last week. Just a little status update on those guys. Is Monty going to be good to go? Kind of worried about my guy. Want him to get out there and face his old team. Just a little update on Carlton Davis and Monty.
Yeah, to me, I think the 2 question marks might be Carlton Davis and Khalif Raymond. I think that the Lions said they got good news on the first test in terms of the long-term severity of Khalif Raymond. So I think that there's a chance that it's not going to be season-ending. Carlton Davis might be a little bit tough, being that it's a knee situation, and you kind of want to be cautious You don't want to risk any further injury. His importance will be in the playoffs. And you also have the benefit of Emmanuel Moseley, who talked to reporters. You can check out Lions on SI. A handful of reporters talked to him after Dan Campbell said, hey, we can play him anywhere. So maybe you can kind of get an evaluation on Emmanuel Moseley. Taylor Decker, I think, and David Montgomery are going to play. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to play. I think David Montgomery, when you heard just how funny Dan Campbell is, he's like, look, we got bigger fish to fry, and it's not the Colts. We got the Bears and the Packers and the Bills coming up. We don't got to worry about it. Sit the fourth quarter, man. You're all good. No issues taken. We don't want to have any chances of David Montgomery having any issues. So he'll be out there, and he's going to probably want to steamroll this Bears defense. So I'm intrigued by how this game could go, because you remember what happened last year. The Lions kind of were a little bit sloppy, and they turned the ball over against the Packers, and that kind of led to them playing from behind. It's tough because this may not be the cleanest game the Lions play because of the short turnaround. The players are tired. They just got to get out there. It may not be the best brand of football, but I look for David Montgomery to be a heavy focus early on, at least. Run the football, try to set some kind of tempo so that you can grind out this kind of football game. I love the idea of Thanksgiving, but you can kind of see it on the players, man. The way in which they practice, tough, hard-fought games, they just got to be exhausted. And like everyone said, it's mental. You got to be able to mentally power through 60 minutes of football. And let's see, because the narrative this week has been 7 games in a row they've lost on Thanksgiving. Let's try and break it. Let's see if they're able to do it.
Well, speaking of the matchup, they have the Chicago Bears last 2 weeks played close divisional games. I mean, they lost by 1 point. It was a blocked field goal against the Packers, and the Vikings, they took to overtime and ended up losing then. I think this Bears defense is very good, John. There's probably ways you can expose them, like running the football. Dave Montgomery's averaging 6 yards a carry last 2 games against them. What do you make of kind of the weapons they have now? DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, Rome Odunze. I mean, even throw in DeAndre Swift, kind of matching up against the secondary and Caleb Williams, the way he's playing. The thing we brought up earlier, John, is, you have a rookie quarterback. You're at home. Offensive line can't protect him. He holds on to the ball. He's going to be in silent count. What do you think of the matchup there? Caleb Williams, the weapons against this secondary this week on a short week.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, the moon, the stars are all aligned for the Detroit Lions to try and grind it out and play well against Chicago. Talk about Chicago. Look, I look at it like, first and foremost, I crushed this Real American beer. I can see why they're a great sponsor of you guys. It just is really great to enjoy and to just drink real fast when you're having a good time. I'm gonna hit this
great beer.
Yes, very much so.
Look at that.
Here we go, Doc.
In this game, it's crazy to think, we'll talk about the talent on the field. I just think that cheers to the fact that Dan Campbell is going to out-coach and coach circles around Eberflus. I just think that when you're a coach and you've had to blow out multiple coordinators, it's really all signs got to point back to you that this team is not coached well. And I do think that probably if the Bears had a better coach, they wouldn't have lost 5 straight games. I like the talent on that football team. But yeah, the offensive line is a struggle. And I think that the guys like Jack Campbell, Malcolm Rodriguez, Emmanuel Moseley might have some fun pressuring maybe Kirby Joseph as well, getting into the mix. Brian Branch, there's been kind of talks, maybe they could mix and match a little bit, if Branch maybe plays a little bit of nickel or anything like that. Look, the key is going to be like any football game, and especially a division game, who runs the football more effectively and making sure that Caleb Williams does not have enough time to survey the landscape, because he's got some nice weapons. DJ Moore and Allen are going to do some things. I never really was a big fan of Swift. I thought that I liked the idea of him, but in the end, everybody thought they were getting Jahmyr Gibbs and DeAndre Swift, but you ended up getting a guy that kind of was a little bit just not available to the degree in which everybody would have liked. And it was tough too. Remember, his first game was that game in which he had a chance to beat the Bears and he drops the football. I was there, and it felt like it deflated the season. So you hope that he doesn't want to, have revenge against the Lions. But in terms of how I see this game, I think the Lions, can maybe get some bounce back, using the tight end and Sam Laporta, get him in the mix a little bit. Yeah, run the football with David Montgomery. At the same token, I really like the emergence of Jahmyr Gibbs. When David Montgomery's gone, I like the way in which you're starting to see a little bit more power runs in Jahmyr Gibbs. You're starting to see his confidence. I love that touchdown that he had where he turns around and basically he's going to point at the guy, the the Colts defender, basically laugh at him like
he's staring him down.
Get the F out of here. So I think it's going to be a game in which you try to run the ball early, but you can kind of get in the mix of having Sam Laporta and Jameson at the same time. But yeah, if you can pressure Caleb Williams, there's going to be some mistakes there that he can make, but he's athletic. So there's a chance there too that you got to make sure you contain that quarterback, because it's going to be, a situation which he's steadily playing to the degree in which you can see some things there, but I just don't see the coaching staff putting the Bears in the right position to win. I think just the Lions are a little bit better offense, defense, special teams. It kind of feels like one of those games where if the Lions play to their capabilities and they limit the mistakes and are just not as sloppy and can overcome some of the mental fatigue that they'll have going on, I can kind of see this game being a little bit lower scoring, like kind of grind it out, 23-17 kind of win kind of deal. But I just think that I don't see the Bears having enough to match wits with the Lions. It's just, the Lions at this point in the season, it's just the Lions against the Lions. And I just want to see them tighten up, in coverage and continue what they've been doing, which is, hey, if you give up a reception, no yards after the catch, and make sure that, Caleb Williams doesn't have all day to throw the football.
Yeah, Doc, even with that kind of containing Caleb Williams, I just want to know what your grade is from last week. Jack Campbell kind of taking over that green dot. I think we actually talked to you about it a little bit last week, but then we finally got to see it on Sunday. And it felt like Jack was all over the place, and he kind of excelled in that role. And Dan said today that they ended up actually giving him, I know they gave Rodrigo a game ball, but he mentioned today Jack actually got one as well. What grade would you give Jack Campbell? How do you think he did in that first game as that main, the green dot again for the next 6 to 7 weeks with Anzo out?
Yeah. Please, chat, refrain from using the V word unless we're talking about something very special. I don't think Vildor is going to play to the same degree that he played this last week. I think it'll be Mosley. There's no way. I mean, look, I think Dorsey's even better than Vildor. I just think that when you saw, man, the Colts figured out quickly, let's go his way. And there were some targets that were out there for him. So I just think Mosley will have more of an opportunity to play, and Dorsey as well. Vildor I just think is a liability. And I think that whoever he'd match up against would feast. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, when I saw Pierce against Vildor, I was like, oh, this is completely unfair. Now, when I see Jack Campbell, man, I enjoy, I feel like it would switch with me back and forth. Like half the time I'd be like David Montgomery, silly, want to dance in the end zone, want to be all about me. And then the other half would be the more serious type like Jack is, where you just handle your business, hit people, hit them again, and go back to work and be serious. So it go back and forth. It might pick, maybe depending on maybe the division games, you take it more seriously. And then the games that are blowouts, you can start having fun and dance out there out on the football field. But I respect Jack Campbell. I've talked to him now for a couple years. We joke around a little bit. I always rip him for how boring Iowa's offense is and things like that. So I have a nice rapport with him. He will speak to me. Now, it is a little bit more on the serious side. I felt like I caught him, after a tough workout. So he kind of gave me some information just on like his communication, wanting to lead the defense, but it was more in general. And I got to find ways to kind of probe a little bit and get more deeper into some knowledge about the scheme and stuff like that. But he's ultra serious, and I respect that. But I respect that he'll take the time. You can go check it out. Lions on SI today. I wrote up the story that I did, everything that he told me. You can listen to, and I wrote pretty much everything that he told me. He did great. He did absolutely stellar. He earned the game ball along with Malcolm Rodriguez. Is growing in coverage, doing great things. 7 tackles, solo or more, several games in a row. He's understood. Look, the apprenticeship has gone well under Alex Anzalone. He's doing everything that you would expect of him in his second year, reading his keys, getting into coverage a little bit better. Kind of the game is slowing down a little bit. And the first question I asked him, maybe it shouldn't have been the best first question, but I was just like, man, you guys stopped Jonathan Taylor. Like, damn, they only ran the ball once against you guys, and his numbers were way bad. And like, he didn't even smile. like I was fanboying out to him. I was like, man, you guys literally stopped Jonathan Taylor. I got a big smile on my face. I'm excited. Got more energy than he had because he looked like he was wore out. But he said, yeah, that's the job. My job is to stop the run, help the team, play defense, and that's what we're going to do. If it's not me, it's going to be somebody else. Me, Malcolm, Ben, David Long, Ben Neiman, whoever's there, we're going to do our job. We're the linebackers, and we're all hungry, and we're going to do the job. And he said it in such a matter-of-fact way that they expect it, they believe in themselves, and credit to him and Malcolm Rodriguez for stepping in and kind of alleviating some tension. So the grade I give Jack Campbell, A+.
Yeah, and Doc, excuse me, you kind of talked about it earlier with the injuries and whatnot to Amon-Ra, Monty. Going into this game with the Bears, who do you expect to be the X factor as far as the offense goes? You brought up kind of Gibbs, and maybe it might be a Sam Laporta game, him kind of getting that first game back and now maybe warming up at home. Who do you expect to be the X factors on the offense?
Yeah, I love the Lions offense. When it's rolling, man, it's fun to watch. Like they got dances galore. They're doing Allen Iverson tributes. They got dice games. They got things going on. They got some unique stuff going on. So I love it all the way around. I think that if they can get into the rhythm as soon as possible in this game, I think it might, start off with Dave Montgomery running, setting the tone. I hope that Taylor Decker, I do expect him to be there, because that might make things a little bit sketchy in terms of the run game if he's not there. But what's unique is that, depending on how this game goes, they really, when you watch the film, they're using Laporta a little bit more as a blocker, and that's kind of helping the run game. That's great, but you also have a thoroughbred in Sam Laporta. Get him the ball. So I think that, if the opportunity presents itself and you can find some space and get the run game going, I think Laporta can find some space. I know when you look at the film, teams are doing some things to kind of take him away, as well as St. Brown. But, I like Laporta kind of doing some things at the same time. A player that I just have been, enjoying like everybody else is Jameson Williams. If Jared Goff can get him in the mix early, Johnson's going to be around in the secondary doing some things. But I think that Laporta, if they're going to give attention, you figure they're going to try and stop the run when a team loads up in the box, to try and stop Gibbs. And if that's the strategy, I think that Laporta can do some things and get some yards. I don't have Laporta on my fantasy team, but I feel like the owners are getting a little bit antsy because his numbers are way down. And he did have not the best game. I know one pass directed his way didn't look exactly right from Goff, but he also had an opportunity to catch the ball that I thought a player of his caliber should make. So I'm hoping that he has a bounce back game and plays well against the Bears.
All right, yeah. I got some reason I thought Jeff was going. I threw my hat on, Doc. I hope you like my hat here.
Love the hat, Boone.
Appreciate it. I just threw it on, so I don't know. I just saw it sitting here. I said I should throw the hat on. Doc, I want to ask you this. I brought it up yesterday, and I asked the guys a question. If the Detroit Lions offense had a weakness, where it would be, and my answer was a little bit, and this kind of a two-part question. One, for you, where would it be? And number two, where I thought it was when you see this left side of the offensive line, you see some injuries, and Dan Skipper goes in. He was the lowest graded offensive player in the game on Sunday. I want to know too, the second part, is that a serious concern for this Lions team? Because obviously you have Skip that goes in at tackle. At guard, you have Yodi, but it was a weird situation that I think it might have been Yodi and it might have been Colby, that both were inactive on the inactive list on Sunday, but I think Mahogany was actually active. So it feels like the offensive line behind the starters, there's a couple things going on there. Want to get your thoughts on that, and if that's actually a legitimate concern going into the playoffs. Say you lose a guy in the playoffs like Taylor Decker, knock on wood. Is that a concern to look at for this Lions team?
Yeah, anytime you lose a starter along the offensive line, that's going to be a concern. But there's some things that the Lions could do. I do think they wanted to get Mahogany some experience. It was kind of a little bit of a, raise your eyebrow to see, Coyote Awosika take the backseat to a rookie. But I look at it from the perspective of, the biggest weakness that we're seeing is the inconsistency of the pass protection in the offensive line. There have been some more hits the last couple of weeks. Now, they kind of tightened it up 2 weeks ago, and I think they did an okay job against the Colts. But the offensive line, look, it's a great group. I like the addition of Zeitler. You're seeing, wow, that another master moment, master decision by Brad Holmes not paying Jonah Jackson. He's benched with the Rams, and you're like, man, he's had a brutal adjustment going back. And maybe it's the Matthew Stafford effect. When you go play with him, your game just takes a B+ player goes down to a C- when you play with Stafford. I don't know, but hey, it's not Detroit's problem. I feel like Graham Glasgow, vastly underrated, can do a lot of different things. But yeah, look, defensive linemen across the league every single week, bigger, stronger, faster. It's going to be tough. And stunts and the way in which defensive coordinators can challenge offensive lines. It's always a fun chess match when you go back and watch film to see the stunts and where different pressures are coming from. Because everybody knows if you pressure Jared Goff, there's going to be more of a chance that you have a chance to stifle the offense. But here's the best part about the development of the MVP, Jared Goff, is that he's finding answers. He's getting the ball out quicker. He knows. He basically can feel the pressure where it's coming from. He knows in his vast experience playing this game, okay, if the mic's there based on this shift, the pressure should come from here. There haven't been too many blindside hits. So look, throughout the course of a game, I feel like when the football team's playing at the level that it's at, that, yeah, they're going to, have some moments where the opponent has an edge or makes a play. But by and large, over the course of 60 minutes, the social media accounts, the fanboys out there, they keep replaying it. And every time they play it, I enjoy watching it. The Lions are going to drag you out to the deep end, and they're going to bury you. They're going to push you under the water and take you to the deep, dark abyss. And if you don't want to play for 60 minutes and battle, grind, be physical, you're going to get your ass beat. And it just kind of feels that way that, yeah, they may be down halftime, third quarter, but when it's money time and it's time for the Lions to step it up and play Detroit Lion football, they're just going to choke out the opponent. That's what's been fun, is that they can have mistakes in the game and make adjustments in the second half and play well. But yeah, the offensive line is the concern. And then probably, red zone at times can get sloppy. And, you saw the play call on fourth down was a brutal play call. The Colts got in the backfield so fast. It was just,
that was tough. That was so tough.
We talked about that on the podcast, just debating it a little bit, saying that, look, Dan Campbell has not been punished for those mistakes, in the regular season, but just pay attention against the best of the best opponents. Does he do it still? Because it may have contributed to the NFC title game loss. The aggression's great. Look, I get the live by the sword, die by the sword philosophy, but man, you can trust your defense now. So we'll see we'll see if he does it again in the postseason.
It felt like a fine fourth down, though. It just felt like it was a bad play call by Ben Johnson.
Yeah,
right.
It was a bad play call, and it didn't work out. But I just feel like take the points. It probably wasn't going to matter against the Colts either way. But man, you got to walk that fine line in the postseason where points are a premium.
And Doc, obviously we had St. Brown get injured after Khalif Raymond returning punts, and that's why his injury is kind of nagging into this week. Did they ever give an update on who's going to be returning punts moving forward? Because obviously we don't want a guy like St. Brown. We know how valuable he is to this offense. We don't want him returning punts. Did they ever give an update on that?
Yeah, it's been asked about, and Dan Campbell kind of was joking around. He said, I know you guys are talking about St. Brown. Let's use St. Brown. It's not going to be St. Brown. I don't think it's going to be J-Mo. He said, he basically said it. He's been trying to get out there and do it, but it's not going to be him. So I think that the best candidate is Vaki on the roster. Let him do his thing. If you maybe don't want to use his talents, I think the other person that's on the roster, but on the practice squad could get elevated is Maurice Alexander. That's probably the next candidate behind Vaki. But I think Vaki is probably the ideal candidate. They're keeping it under wraps, and it's good. It's smart. If you check out Amon-Ra's, and I think I asked the question fairly, but maybe this part I could have fine-tuned a little better. I said, hey, man, you return punts. That was Khalif's job, and you now got a chance to see how tough it is. Do you get more of an appreciation for just the role that Khalif Raymond has him do this job? Because it's not easy, and they were coming after you. And he was like, oh, yeah, we knew that once Khalif stayed down for a while, it was serious because he's a warrior. And he's like, oh, I always had respect for what Khalif does, for what he brings to the table and everything like that. So look, the returner job is important. You don't want to have somebody in there that will fumble the ball or have any ball security issues. You want to have someone make the right decisions. I think, and my gut tells me Vaki, but it could be somebody else. They've kept it under wraps.
What about Khalil Dorsey? Vaki, it sounded like today Dan wanted to focus more so on a guy that's like a vet at it, and they want to be safe. That's why he said he went Amon-Ra. I had the conversation and brought up how Maurice Alexander fumbled a couple times in the preseason. And then we had brought up Khalil Dorsey because he's done it in his career a couple times. You think Khalil's someone to look at?
Yeah, it does. But see, the thing that always makes you wonder too is what's his contribution going to be in the secondary? Do you want to then put him back there as well? You want him to have as fresh legs as possible if you're going to go out there and cover. So we'll see. That's another great option as well. I like what Khalil Dorsey can bring to the table, and the mix that they have, I think, is going to be okay in terms of the special teams. But yeah, Khalif Raymond going down, if it's going to be for the foreseeable future, it's a tough loss. I understood what he was able to do and the things that he brought to the table. But I think the Lions return game will provide, it'd be great to see when they go out there, because the Lions special teams has been, stellar too. Offense, defense, special teams. I was asked by SI to give a grade. I just gave everybody an A in terms of the coaches, the units, because of how well the special teams. Fox has been playing well. Bates has not had a blemish yet. So I just think that next man up, whoever it may be, is going to be successful.
All right, I'm back. So am I good?
We can hear you.
I was wondering why the show was so good. I was like, man, this show's gotten so much better.
Jeff's over there.
Am I good? No lag?
You're good. You're good.
All right, we're back. Sorry, Doc. My internet taking a dump. I wanted to ask you this before we got you out of here, so I'm glad I'm back. I've been hearing a lot of hype on national media. A lot of people talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. You saw Saquon Barkley. What do you think now? Every week you have the ability to kind of change, maybe alter your opinion. Where are you at on what kind of threat the Eagles pose to the Lions here in the NFC? Because it felt like for a while there was no competition.
Yeah, it's eye-opening. I have Saquon on my team. I'm happy. I kind of had a feeling he would have a bounce back year. It just had all the makings of it. So I look on my phone. I'm like, holy shit, 55 fantasy points. It helped me beat another contender in the division that I'm in fantasy. So I'm 9-3 in fantasy this year, largely due to, which is crazy, is I started at first part of the year CJ Stroud, but I just had Baker Mayfield on my bench, and he's been shining. So Baker Mayfield's been leading the way. J-Mo, Garrett Wilson, and Saquon Barkley have been doing things, as well as George Kittle have been carrying me maybe to my first fantasy title in like 2 decades. I'm excited. And, but I am a little bit, look, to me, the number one thing that's important is the game has to be at Ford Field. I don't want to go to Philadelphia and those crazy people in the wintertime. In no way, shape, or form do you want to do that. But when you look at it on paper, I just think the Lions' physicality and Brandon Graham going down is huge. I think the Lions could wear down that defensive front. I think that took a hit. But look, man, you watch them on film. Jalen Hurts, Brown, they do some things, and it's fun to watch in terms of their offense. Sirianni is always kind of, up and down in terms of his coaching efficacy and the mistakes that he makes. It just kind of feels like, he's not as strong X's and O's wise. Kind of feels like he's a facilitator. I do feel like Ben Johnson would out-scheme Vic Fangio by a mile. I think Fangio's got a great defensive mind, but one in which I think Ben Johnson has some familiarity going up against and can maneuver. Look, it's fun to talk about because I think the game would be competitive. You'd have CJ Gardner-Johnson talking shit to the J-Mo probably and Amon-Ra St. Brown, so that would be fun. I just think that the Lions overall, talent-wise, is a little bit better on offense than the Eagles, and I think that they'd have a chance to learn. If you look at common opponents, the Lions, I think, they both lost to Tampa Bay, but the Lions played them closer. I think you can learn a lot from how Tampa Bay attacked the Eagles. And for me, the tough part, though, is what gets you a little bit nervous. What makes you panic is that the Eagles have a little bit better schedule down the stretch than the Lions do. The Lions have a little bit of tough situation. I'm not setting the Nick Wright alarms here, who's like looking at the schedule going, man, you guys could be 5th in just like that. but be careful. You don't want the Eagles to have the number 1 seed. That's the most important thing, is making sure that this football game, if it takes place in the postseason, make sure it happens at Ford Field. So my concern level, moderate to slightly concerned, if the game, for sure be elevated if the game took place in Philly.
Doc, last question I have for you here, and I think we're going to do some listener questions. So if people want to drop some questions in the chat for the Doc here, mine isn't even a Lions question for you, Doc. It's a college football question. You saw Michigan get Bryce Underwood, flip him. I saw you actually tweet out today and do a kind of talk a little bit about. I know you saw the video of Dave Portnoy. It got released today that he had came out and said that he worked with that billionaire who paid him. The billionaire and his wife said, "Hey, we don't want our names to be like, obviously their names got put out there. They're like, we don't want that. You can get all the recognition." And he had a FaceTime call and a Zoom call with Bryce Underwood that flipped him. What are your thoughts on this whole new college football? Michigan, I know you're a Michigan State grad, so I don't know if it hits closer to home. Like, hey, we need to do something here at Michigan State. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
Well, first and foremost, you got guys, I don't know how much credit I'll take, but damn, William, thank you for giving the guys 50 bones. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, he's donated twice.
It's the spirit of giving.
Give some money.
Hell yeah. Oh, you gave $70. Oh, okay, we'll put that question on hold here, and we'll see 180 on Lions sustainability. We'll see. Maybe you can elaborate while I talk about and complain about NIL. Elaborate.
There we go.
What you mean on the sustainability. But to your point, man, you got to just sit there and be jealous. That's the only feeling a State fan can have. And look, it isn't like I was already talking about it. I screamed about it because I knew it was coming. I knew, look, I tried my best to put the karmic universe out there and say, he's going to LSU. He loves LSU. And then, everyone's like, yeah, what are you going to say when he goes to Michigan? I said, I don't care. He's not going to Michigan. I tried to fight it off as much as possible. But of course, I run a podcast called the Michigan Podcast. And the guy there is great, tapped in as much as anybody. So I basically knew. I just was in denial. He did a podcast. Check it out. Comes out every other week on Tuesday. It's called the Michigan Podcast. Steve Dace is a legend. He, one of the most passionate Michigan fans, one of the smartest human beings I think I've ever talked to. And he's a big integral part of my media career. So I got to shout out Steve Dace, the Michigan Podcast, very passionate, just one of the brightest minds. He's, partnered with me for a long time. And I always want to shout out Steve and the work that he did. But he said, he tweeted out a while back, he said, look, there's a chance that the flip could happen. And I just sit back and I'm just, I guess I can't say it eloquently. I'm just fucking jealous that Michigan had I'm not mad. Look, I want to put it this way. We don't know yet what an unproven quarterback can do. First year, it's very rare that a freshman quarterback comes in and just dominates. It's happened like once in the last 15 years where somebody just comes in, handles it all, and just everything's built around him and he shines. So, I love the philosophy. I love the all-in nature of Michigan saying, hey, we knew somebody that was loyal to Michigan, wanted to be to Michigan, and let's go pay him. And what that does, it just sends a signal. We're serious, that we're going to bring talent to Michigan and we're going to compensate them at the value that is the going rate. And that's the starting point. But I can sit here and smile and say, is Sharon Moore the coach that will get the most out of him? I can troll and say, maybe not. But, I think my trolling response to the people was like, don't you guys want the best for Michigan? Don't you want the best for Bryce Underwood and him developing at Michigan? Is that going to happen? Is he going to be like Davis Warren or is he going to be better? Well, you turn on the tape and, oh man, Bryce Underwood's pretty sweet. But I don't know if he's going to be sweet in 2025. I think that Michigan fans should be very excited that his sophomore through senior seasons, potentially, if you surround him with a good offensive line, some good offensive weapons, he's got the framework of somebody that you can develop into a great quarterback. And I just sit here and go, I'm jealous that a Michigan fan got her very wealthy significant other that has $233 billion to just drop some money on Michigan.
Second richest guy in the world.
I just fantasize like, man, Michigan State paying $1 million each for the offensive line and $1 million each for the defensive line and spending all that money. Where all I can say is the PSA is Spartan donors with the money. Where are you?
Come on, Doc. Like, time to donate.
Crickets. Of course, I had delusions of grandeur, thinking, man, if I made that kind of money, I would want to do that. I just would want to be like the only guy. I'm going to spend $50 million on the football team every year. But look, winning is great, but I enjoy spending my own money on myself. So could I have the vision to cut a check to watch football? I'm a fan of Michigan State, but am I that crazy to set up Zoom calls with the money people? Maybe if Michigan State gets their tail kicked in for the next 3-4 years and it's embarrassing, maybe I got to put out a call to the, put out a PSA like Dave did and say, hey, where are the Michigan State donors that have money? Spend some money on some talent for this football team. Make Jonathan Smith look a little bit better than he does. We're fighting to be 6-6 against Rutgers. Where is the money for the Spartans? But for the first and foremost, the Spartans need to find a way to update that stadium. It is horrendous. You go in there, and if there's a crowd, you can't even get through the halftime if you need to go piss without missing the whole halftime and third quarter because you're so cramped in, you don't even move to the bathroom. That whole stadium needs to be destroyed and revamped and start anew. The facilities are nice, but are you going to guys, go see the Alabama YouTube videos. I was enthralled. Sports Illustrated sent our reporter around Ann Arbor and Alabama and SEC, and she got to tour the Alabama facilities. And they got pool tables, they got leather chairs, they got the amenities up the wazoo. I was like, oh my goodness. You know, the difference between the haves and the have-nots is crazy. But Alabama is also now a 3-loss team, and the talent is spread all over. So it gives me a little bit more hope that if Michigan State can find the right talent, team can win some games and compete with Michigan.
You can only hope, Doc. You can only hope. You can only hope. William did kind of respond here. He says, John knows it's on the CTP archives if that's a thing.
So did I say that if Ben and Aaron leave, the Lions are done? Or listen, with more facts, you're allowed to change your opinion. And here's where I'm at with the Lions as a whole. I think Brad Holmes, you clearly can. And I think maybe at the time I spoke, I did not give Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes enough credit for the wisdom that they bring to be able to foster growth. Now, if Ben and Aaron leave, will there be a drop-off? That's the million-dollar question. You know, what's next? Does Ben take somebody with him? Does he take an Engstrand with him? Does he take the quarterback coach with him? Who goes? Who stays? When there's uncertainty, you know, but I do feel like this offense has a lot of Dan Campbell staples, run the ball, have a good offensive line, Hank Fraley. So would, you know, this football team be Super Bowl caliber without those guys? It's always tough to say because we're still talking about them ascending to their first Super Bowl with this crew. But again, I have Lions PTSD. I'm always of the fatalistic, you know, mindset of, oh my God, this is all going to end very soon type deals. You know, Aiden goes down, it's over kind of thing. But like everybody else, William, we can all sit back and say, wow, maybe Dan Campbell is the wizard that everybody says he is. And he can also, the next step of proving his wizardry is to lose his coordinators and still win. If you do that, man, that's next level type stuff.
Well, William says, there it is. New information. It was about saying Crosby for the farm. Fuck the future. Then last week, Dynasty talk.
Yeah. Look. Okay. Of course. Listen.
Hey, calm down.
Fuck the future. No, look. Again. Okay. Here's my philosophy. Okay. My opinion stands on that. When people say sustained success, my mind goes to, hey, how do I stay on the job longer? How do I keep reaping the rewards of millions of dollars? To me, when you're starving as a fan base, you just want that Super Bowl like right now. Like we're talking about the Super Bowl right now. Like we're all talking about, did this football team match up better with the Eagles to get to the Super Bowl? Does this do you want to face the Chiefs or the Ravens? Look, in any way, shape, or form, I don't care about the future. In terms of if you could have gotten Crosby and mortgaged draft picks, I think this team now with Max Crosby on it wins the Super Bowl, and I can sleep easy. I can drink. I have no worries. At this very time, William, with the team that they got, when they go to the Super Bowl, I might have to drink because I'm going to be fucking panicking. I'm going to be like, please, God, let this football team win, because the prices that the New Orleans is charging for hotels is out of this world. And the Lions are a good football team, but with Max Crosby, I feel like they can go to the Super Bowl and dominate, like have a Dallas Cowboy performance. I don't know if my poor heart can take a down to the wire 13-13 game, 20-20 game at back and forth in the fourth quarter. My heart would be out of my chest for all the work that would have been done going into it. And I just think that, I just think that when you have a chance to potentially get Max Crosby, if you would have wanted to come here, I would have given up 3 picks, no problem whatsoever. Because I think that Brad Holmes can find a way to maneuver around it to get back to it. So I am fully of the opinion Max Crosby on this football team. My God, you could maybe now talk about 2 Super Bowls instead of just the 1. Max Crosby went awesome. Now look, Max Crosby, I feel bad for the guy. Max, you had the chance. Yeah, all you had to do was open your mouth. Now you're going to be a Raider, rotten Raider for the rest of your life. Good luck with that.
William says props to John for hanging in. Dude's a dog. You know what? Yeah, John, you are an absolute dog. We appreciate you as always joining the program, hanging out with the fellas. It's always a great time having you. Sorry about some of the internet issues I had earlier, but you know what? We'll be all right. Doc, good luck on Thursday. Keep up the great work, my friend. We'll talk to you next week, hopefully after another Lions W here.
No doubt. That was the fastest hour I think we've ever had. That means we're having fun. And number one thing that I think everybody wants to hear from the DOC, fuck the Bears.
Oh, family friendly, Doc.
Yeah, and he's gone. No, and he's gone. By the way, as always, brought to you guys by BetUS. Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, officialctsports.com.